Tuesday night's Triumph Over Targeting podcast. I'm your moderator, Ella. Tonight we have a very, very special guest, Linda Costanza, our community's own. I wanted to tell everybody a few things before we get started. If you are new to the call, please stay on and we will get you some additional support, some additional TalkShoe podcast numbers, and some helpful links and websites. This is a solutions and educational-based podcast, but the views and opinions of my guests are not necessarily my own personal views and opinions. My goal is that everyone can gain something out of tonight, especially a feeling of empowerment. If you have any suggestions, comments, questions, especially if you are in need of some additional support, please don't hesitate to email me at tiangel2016@gmail.com. So now I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce you to our guest. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Ella. How you doing?
So I know that I can hear you well.
Good.
You sound great.
Good.
And so, I know we had discussed having an interview, and then you were, prior to hitting record, you were telling me the situation, how you were kind of thought about not doing it. Do you want to go into it again? Because I just think it's such a great story, which
Sure.
you realized this morning.
What I was frightened of doing this because I was feeling very inadequate and all those things that they like us to feel. And then that was last night. But this morning, I woke up and I sent Ella a message at the very end of the night last night and said, I can't do this. I can suggest other people, but I can't do this. And then this morning, it was wild. First of all, there's no tinnitus today. So I don't know if that is relating to the fact that I felt much better this morning. I sort of think it does. But I woke up and thought, boy, we're a strong group. We can survive. Why? Because we have been up against huge odds, and we have survived. And we are really working hard to get this straightened out, understand it, and get rid of it. And the strength that we have shown is just, I think, amazing. Just amazing. I think we're a very, very powerful group. And the only thing we lack is knowing that, in my opinion. We have to know that we are powerful. And when we know that, and we know that we do have an impact on this, and we can, I think we will move ahead so quickly. I just think we really need to know that we are strong, and we are. I'm pretty amazed by us. And I also didn't realize that for a long time, ever since my husband died, I thought I could not take care of myself, or I was going to go under any minute now. And because of you guys and because of sharing on here, I realized this morning, oh, yes, I can take care of myself. I know I can. We all can. And, wow, that was a big one for me. So thank you, too, to the rest of you for being here and sharing, and so that we can, all move forward. And I want to say that my power was out all day. I was working on a wonderful outline to be prepared and be, brilliant. And then the power went out, my computer went down, and I couldn't finish it. I'm going to do my best, okay?
Well, that's okay. We'll just try your very best. I just think you're a very inspirational person, so I love that you're coming on here. My dog's doing something weird. Calm down.
My poor puppies.
Anyways, I know you love your doggies as much as I love mine.
Yeah.
She's crazy.
And
anyway.
Go ahead.
Come on. Stop. Anyway. So, I guess we should start at the beginning. Like, maybe we could, we had a little discussion yesterday talking about, your family of origin and maybe where you lived and what that was like.
Well, okay, yeah, it's not too dramatic. I lived on a little tree-lined street in Arcadia. Grew up in a very, a pretty, somewhat oppressive but very Christian home. We went to church every Sunday, and my dad read the Bible every Sunday afternoon, and it was quite strong, but it was also a very unfortunate home. So I sort of got away from Christianity for a long time until I got sober later, and then God was a big part of my life. And I was a black sheep, but I got straight A's, and that was a hard one for my family to understand. But that's where I came from. And that's about all I can say about that. I just, I got married and had a son, and that's kind of the first part of my life. Okay.
And when when you kind of got out on your own, did you stay? I know you were in California, I believe, and you kind of fell into working in the legal field. So maybe you want to touch upon that quickly.
Sure. A friend of mine had a friend that had a brother who was a lawyer in a firm downtown, and I was interviewed for the receptionist, and I got the job. And that turned into being a legal secretary, and that turned into being pretty much a paralegal. So I got into the legal field, and I liked it very much. I enjoyed it very much, and I really wish I'd gone back to school and become a lawyer, but I didn't. I was busy drinking, which I took care of later, but I did not excel in that part of my life at all.
When did you realize you had a drinking issue?
Oh, early on. In my 20s, I realized something was up, and not too long after that, I got sober.
Yeah.
Through AA.
And you were working in the legal field.
Yeah.
And you met a wonderful man at the firm, I take it, and you guys were...
Not that first firm, but later on, yeah. I met my husband at a firm. Yes, a little later on than the first firm, and I ended up marrying him. Well, obviously, if he was my husband, I married him. And and he was just the most amazing man ever, a wonderful man. But as I look back, I also realized he was a target, and his partner was targeting him. And, money was disappearing, and they were kind of messing with his cases they had to go to trial with. They were doing their best to bring him down. And he was such an amazing man who everybody loved. And that's just such a treacherous thing to do. Well, they do it to all of us, They do it to all of us. They take us down one way or the other as best they can. But again, here we are with each other. After my husband died, what I realized, as I was thinking about this today, what I realized is that people started to kind of surround me. Suddenly I had friends who were wonderful and wanted to help and wanted to guide me and all that sort of thing. And as I look back, clearly I was surrounded by perps. Because I was referred to somebody who was a perp, and then as I look back, I had an awful lot of damaging people in my life back then. And I didn't realize what was happening. But that was the beginning. That was sort of the mild form of targeting me. And then a 6'7", good-looking guy with wonderful hair, funny, great dancer, have everything. He came into my life, and then bank statements started disappearing along with money and various things. So he had to leave. And as I look back, he was one of them. I at first thought he was just a creep, and I realized, I think he was one of them. Too many things were going wrong, And he used to put his hands around my neck, and I said, "What are you doing?" I'm just seeing a safe bet. And it was so weird. Who puts their hands around someone's neck? It just made me feel weird anyway.
Yeah,
it was pretty crazy. Yeah.
So what kind of, in your mind, what kind of initiated the targeting in your case?
The lawyer that I sued. I had to sue him after my husband died. He wanted to keep everything that my husband had worked a lifetime for. And I said, no, you can't do that. And I had to sue him. And that's when the people started surrounding me, to guide me along. And that's when the mild targeting started, but the really heavy targeting started after the lawsuit was settled, and it didn't go that well for him. And I started being injured physically. And I don't mention this much to you guys because I don't want anybody to think that that's a regular course of business with these guys, that they come out and beat you over the head. This man was particularly greedy and particularly, vengeful. He wanted revenge, boy, because how dare I? He sort of lost his reputation while the lawsuit was going on because what he had tried to pull like changing life insurance policies 11 days before my husband died from me to him. Lots of things like that happened when right before and after my husband died. And it kind of destroyed his reputation because that all became a matter of litigation and public documents. And he sort of, I'm sure, thought that I had somehow besmirched his reputation because I didn't quite know how important he was. You know, I had the nerve to sue him because who was I? I was nobody. And he felt, as all our perps do feel, we are nobody. And he was, you know, where did I just go? He was just very angry, and it was a lot of revenge he was going for, and when the case settled, that's when he was furious, just furious, because the judge wouldn't let him take everything. And even though my lawyer had sold me out, as I knew later from the records, the judge listened to the story, and I spoke up in the mandatory settlement conference and said, this is what's so important to my husband. And I didn't know that my lawyer had never included the assets in the loss. It's just nonsense. And when she realized what was going on, she asked me to leave the room, and I did. And when I went back in, she said, okay, where's the money? I said, it's in the building. She said, they're yours. Where else? Anything else? Any other money? She was so angry at these guys for trying to, all of them, defraud me. And she wasn't going to have any part of it. God bless her. There are good judges around, you guys. There really are. This whole system has not sold out. This woman was very protective of me and made sure that they didn't totally mess me up. And he was furious. He had set it up. My lawyer had helped him. The evidence disappeared. It just goes on and on. But and my documents were disappearing. My lawyer was hiding a lot of the documents that I brought in to prove what I was saying. Well, they disappeared, and later on, I found all those documents within the stuff that they shipped to me, and there they were. My own lawyer had hidden the proof, the facts from the case, and they really had set me up, and it didn't work. God bless that woman. Emily Elias is her name. She's a judge in the L.A. Central courts, and just God bless her. God bless her. But we don't always get screwed over by the courts. Not always. They do a lot, and it happens too often. But hang in there. And something that I found too is know what you're up against. Get as much information as you can and speak up. We have to speak up. Well, actually, before I go on, I'll tell you one thing. The water company is trying to tell me right now that I used $600 worth of water for the last billing period, which would mean something like 780,000 gallons of water in a certain period of time, which I don't do. But the interesting thing is they will say things to us. These perps, or people who cooperate with perps, will say things to us with a straight face and expect us to back away. Just expect us to buy it and back away because they think they can intimidate us. It's crazy. They will do, they say these things, as I said, with a straight face. And I'm now checking my own meter, and I can see where they're crazy. And they can't get away with it, and thank God. They were trying to get away with it, and they do a lot in this county. But we have to speak up, and do a lot of our own homework, because I'm checking my water meter every morning, writing it down, and what they've tried to get past me is insane. It's insane.
Right.
They claim that I used enough water to cover 4.5 acres of land with a foot of water. I live in a nice little home with a nice little yard. I just don't use that kind of water. So when I looked into it and studied it and figured out how many gallons are in a cubic square foot of water, it became very obvious how insane it is that they're trying to do. And I think that's what perps do to us. I think They try to, and they think they're going to get away with it. Okay. Okay.
But to go back a little bit, we were talking on the phone, and you took some pretty devastating blows, like physically.
Yeah.
I know that you were hit over the head, literally.
Yeah, that's where I'm going right now.
Injured your back. Maybe you can go into a little detail.
Yeah,
I didn't realize until I spoke to you the severity of what you had experienced before.
Well, and my serious targeting started 6 months after that case settled. And the first time I got injured, I was hit over the head by an 18-foot cast iron light post that was actually being pushed towards me, according to a neighbor who saw the whole thing happen. The bolts had been taken out of the bottom so that it wasn't steady, and then these guys were a gentleman that later claimed he owned my property was one of the people that was pushing this light post at me. It hit me over the head. And I had 47 stitches in my head, and I had 2 fractured vertebrae from that. Okay, why I don't know. I didn't think it was a crime at the time. The second time I was coming up my stairs at 2:30 in the morning, all of a sudden I was crashed down onto. I had hardwood stairs. My head hit those hardwood stairs 4 times, and heads don't bounce like that. It was somebody was picking my head up and slamming it into those stairs, and again I was hospitalized, and they said then, when they would, I was so damaged that when they were pushing me down in the wheelchair to get X-rayed, the people that worked at the ER were saying, "Oh my God, what happened?" I was just black and blue and swollen. It was bad. They really went after me, and then I found out later how they got in, and that's another long story. Okay, and then the last one was just when I decided to move out of Manhattan Beach. Again, I'm walking upstairs, and all of a sudden, an open area. Oh, that's a long story, but okay. Walking upstairs, and all of a sudden, I'm losing consciousness, and I felt myself being pulled by my shirt in back and slammed onto the landing on the lower floor, or the landing on the first floor of my house. And from that one, I was in ICU for 5 days with a brain hemorrhage, 5 broken ribs, a broken collarbone, and a collapsed lung. That was a serious accident or injury. And the doctor wanted me to file a police report. And I told him, well, I didn't really remember it, so how could I do that? And he said, if I've been hit as hard as you were, I wouldn't be able to remember it either. You were, really beaten. And, but I couldn't remember it, and so I kind of let it go. And then somehow my sister arrived at the ICU. I don't know, nobody knew her or knew her phone number, but there she was. And she talked me out of filing a police report because she told me that I would get the guy who was standing behind me in trouble. He had worked for me for a while, and she was concerned that I would get him in trouble. Later, with the help of James Lyko, I discovered that her husband writes software for DEWs, directed energy weapons, and was at that time he was forming a company that wanted to work with the Department of Defense. So he's one of the people that creates those weapons that attack us. And I think that has something to do with her turning on me. Okay. Do you want me to keep going?
Well, to go back to you're having these horrible experiences, what were your friends and family saying to you? Were you trying to tell them what was going on? Had you already come across the word targeted individual at that point?
No. I didn't find that word until 2.5 years ago. No, my sister was clearly, I was all of a sudden treating me, and she told me she thought I was delusional. Even after she knew about all these accidents, she felt that I just wasn't trying hard enough to improve my life, and that I was delusional. And that's why I was so relieved to find these calls, because I was hearing other people talking about similar experiences of, people taking their documents, stealing their money, and they tried to foreclose on my house in 2007. I saved that by a few days. I'm not delusional. That's what was happening. you know?
Right.
And I hadn't talked to my brother for a long time because he's a long story, but he wanted to take my business from me. I started my unemployment agency for legal secretaries, and I had that while my husband was alive. And my brother, right after my husband died, my brother wanted to open a San Francisco office, and oh, by the way, he wanted the license in his name. And I stopped talking to him. So I didn't have a lot of family. My son and I talked, but I just didn't have a lot of people. I didn't have a lot of people to talk to. So no, I didn't talk to many people about it. And my family was not the least bit helpful. And that's who they are. You know, they turned on me.
Right.
As I told
you. At some point, though, I'm sorry, I was a little distracted.
Sure.
You didn't just.
Sure.
At some point, you were invited up, invited to come close to your family. You'd been in Manhattan Beach at that point, and so you took them up on it, and then you come up there, and now you're more isolated than ever.
Well, that's after. First, I moved to Cambria after Manhattan Beach. I moved after I got hit the last time, and that's when they started killing my animals. They killed Heinz, a wonderful black shepherd. He's been with me for 14 years. They killed a cat that had been with me, Kitty. He had been with me for 19 years. I got him when he was a little tiny thing in my hands. And they got him, and they let me know how they did it. And he hemorrhaged to death screaming in my arms. And that's one that I'm sorry. That obviously still gets me. That was a horrible experience. And then my little Yorkie, it appeared that she was given antifreeze, and she died. And that was really tough. I mean, I love the animals. I'm sorry. I didn't think I'd be doing this. But I love my animals, And boy, when they just start killing your animals. Anyway, when that kept going and I was, didn't know what to do, my sister-in-law called me and she said, come up here. We'll be with you. We're your friends. We'll be able to support you. We'll, back you up. We'll help protect you. And oh, by the way, give me a set of keys so I can get into your house and your garage opener. And anyway, she said she sent my brother down to get the records that I really needed to help protect myself with, and he said, I'll help you move, I'll come and get those records, and I'll bring them back up here. Well, he did, but he never brought them to me. He took them to somebody else, and when I started saying, where are my records, they picked a fight with me, and I haven't heard from him since. And I am more isolated than I've ever been, and that's unfortunate. But you know what? We survived. We survived, and I've found a way to get through this. We all find a way to get through what we're dealing with, And I won't go into what my son did, but he unfortunately went to the other side, and more talked into going to the other side by his wife. And anyway, so I don't really have family anymore.
You have us for your family.
Exactly. That's why I love this group so much. We are here for each other. We really, truly do care. And by the way, throughout all of this injuries and killing animals and all of that, they have taken a great deal of money from me. They have taken my documents. First, the documents disappear, and then the money disappears. And they've been doing that, since 93. So I walk around with a backpack full of documents, and it's too heavy to carry really anymore. But I stay home most of the time. I'm kind of homebound, and I don't plan on staying that way. I'm working at stopping that right now. And I talked to Kathy Meadows, and she is helping me get through all that. She's a very helpful woman. And
she's also making her services available to other people as well, and she has very reasonable rates. And we put her on the website on the Freedom for Targeted Individuals under support. Yeah, so I know she's one of the people that are offering help and for a reasonable amount of money, and I always appreciate when people are willing to provide services at a fair price. I think that's So how did you find out about the term targeted individual, and then how did you find the community in TalkShoe?
Well, I knew I was being followed,
Right.
and that's kind of, I started looking up words or, things. I started Googling, I don't know, just needing information about, because I knew I was being followed, and I finally believed myself. And
Right.
and I just started Googling, and somehow I came across FFCHS, and I read through that, and I thought, well, that's very cool. And then I saw the conferences, and I started going on the conference calls, and Shelley called me one day and said, she'd like to work with me, and wanted me to open a Friday night call, and I did. And
and in case people don't know who Shelley is, she was the moderator, I don't know for how long, maybe a year, I think, and she helped run a couple of really good quality calls, and I actually kind of model my podcast around hers, because I went, anyway, so I just want to give a little feedback. She's not around at the time being, but hopefully she'll come back and have her calls again.
Yeah.
So anyway, so she had offered you and invited you to come on board and, have a your own, call of your own.
We didn't necessarily get along, and we finally parted ways, and that's that. But I stayed with the call, and I enjoy it because I like people to be happier. We need to keep our frequencies up so that they have more trouble shoving them down, and they do work at that, as we all know. And we just need to keep our frequencies higher, and I think enjoying each other is one way we can do that, and knowing that we have support is huge, huge. And then talking to reasonable people, and like when I start feeling totally insane, I talk to Mike Mason, who brings me back down to reality. And I wish I could remember some of the things he's told me. It's just priceless to keep me kind of centered. In fact, it was Mike who said, if they had total control over our minds, then we wouldn't even be calling here because they wouldn't let us. And so we know we know we're still in charge. We just, they just work us, but we are. All we have to do is not believe them, I think. That helps anyway. And after I found the calls, and I heard a man named Dwight Magnum, who I still have tremendous respect for, because I've used what he has suggested, and it works. Those magnets, that works for me every time. When I feel like I'm being hit in a certain area, like I knew they were going after my knee, which totally disabled me, and I could barely walk there for a while. I started putting magnets in the area that I was getting hit, and son of a gun, it stopped. I could walk. It was just amazing how quickly that happened. I've used magnets in other areas where I knew I was being hit, or some sort of something, I don't know what it was. I don't know, it was microdust, whatever that was under my skin, that ended up in a straight line in my knuckle, and my finger would start to turn blue and swell when I was getting hit. So I knew something, whatever that little line in there was, and it happened right after I had dental surgery, so I don't know. But anyway, I wrapped magnets around it, and it deactivated it. I just think what Dwight says is really important. And grounding helps. It helps me tremendously. And James Lyko suggested, and this works for me too, is a vinyl magnetic tape. Or it's more like for coping, but it's thick. But you can stick it to yourself, and it's vinyl magnetic, and that works too. That takes the frequencies and scatters them, I think. And also, one thing I did one time, and I know it was working. Okay, I took a bunch of magnets and I just put them everywhere in my bedroom, behind the dresser, behind the nightstand, behind the big boy, behind the other bench that I've got over there, just everywhere. And when I went to look for them, they were all gone. And that told me that somebody did not want those magnets in here in my room because it dissipated the signal. It would make it not work as well. And they wouldn't have come in and gotten them had the magnets not worked. And as I mentioned on the calls, they are hitting my animals. And for Daisy, she's a senior dog, and they've hit her very hard, and she can barely walk anymore. And she was a pretty sturdy, older but sturdy senior dog about a year ago, and they went after her starting about 8 months ago, and she can barely walk. And the cruelty of these people is just phenomenal. But I'm going to get her, I'm going to take care of her. I'm going to make sure she's comfortable. They can't beat us. They can't beat us. If we share if we share and we help each other and we give suggestions and we talk to each other, they cannot beat us. I absolutely believe that. If they could, I'd be dead by now. I've been through a lot of injury and targeting and a lot. And I'm alive. So here we are.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
How did your targeting progress, or has it been somewhat the same over the past few years?
Up here, ever since I moved, since the injuries, no, it's progressed to some degree. They hit my head. They want me to have no hair, and that's annoying. I've been to dentists who I think one was injured very badly after he did some good work on me, and after he got injured, he started doing very bad work on me. So I've had some dentists mess with my teeth. I think that's part of the targeting. They get to them, I think. I don't think they get to every dentist and every doctor, but they can. They're a powerful group. They can, we just have to. I don't know quite how to solve that medical issue yet, but I will. It'll happen. And then again, my animals get being hurt, and I couldn't walk for a while because of the pain where I was getting hit. And they're still taking documents, and they've just gotten through taking a very large sum of money. And I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it. I'm going to do it. I've got enough information about it to be able to do that. It's just I got scared for a while, and every time I take a step forward, I seem to get hit. And you know what? That can't stop us. Got to take another step forward, and just shield yourself as best as possible. That means get a bunch of magnets and glue them to yourself.
So, someone asked in the chat room, what size magnets? Type of I don't. I don't make that. I just get magnets. I just go onto Amazon and I find all kinds of different magnets. Yeah. Some of them with holes in them, so that I can sew them onto things. And who was it? Sandy in Florida asked me, how can you get a needle through a hole in a magnet? How do you push that through? Because it will affix itself to the magnet. And yes, they do, but you just get a really strong thimble, and you push that baby through that hole, and you just keep sewing, and it will get through. And I suggest that you use something like stuff that you use on your teeth, because it doesn't break, and right.
Get a great big needle with a great big eye, and get some dental floss and sew those babies on, and they will stay there. Unfortunately, if you put them on a cloth, they all clink together. They all find each other, and they got to tear them apart and make them work. But you can make it work. And by the way, there are also mattress pads with magnets. I've got 2 of them, and I think it's helped. I've also gotten my dogs 1 each, and I'm hoping that helps. So there are a lot of things out there. There are a lot of things out there that we can use these days. Grounding seems to work very well. I know it works for, Kyle mentioned that it works for him, and I know it works for me. And I just use the one that plugs into the wall. I think, in fact, I was talking to you on a call the first time I put it on, the grounding thing, and it was and I said, you guys, I may blow up right here, because it scared me to push it into the wall, into the plug, but I'm alive, and it worked, and I think grounding is a very good idea. But I took my pups out in the front yard yesterday to let them do some grounding, and something was hitting them out there, so we came back in. They were very uncomfortable. So,
that's working. And Linda and I are actively, as well as some other people, Sue Mai, and some other people are really trying to think of ways to protect animals, and how to get pet involved, and that's kind of a side topic, but it's very important to people like me and you, Linda.
And they can really sort of take us down by. I mean, I know when my puppies are hurting, it breaks my heart. It's just so difficult to watch, and so yes, I think finding something in that regard is really important, very important. And I do think there's an energy out there that we can feel. I had a near-death experience after my husband died, and it was when that post hit me over the head, and he was there. He was there. I had a block wall that, and so was my great grandmother who raised me. And I was transported down this long hallway with a light, and I heard chimes, and all of a sudden I was smack dab in front of my husband. He was at the gate of this wall with thousands of people behind him, and he was telling me, "You can't come. You can't come now." But it was the most incredibly glorious feeling to see him, to know this is a parent. I never expected it. I didn't know anything about past life or future, when we pass on. And boy, it was one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had. What's waiting for us is just amazing, just amazing. And so, and after that experience, I was no longer afraid of dying, because I know it's beautiful on the other side. It's what we've always wanted to feel is on the other side. So anyway, I think we have an energy. There's an energy out there that we can connect to that is just wonderful and loving. And I think it's easiest to connect through prayer. And, I don't think they like it. I think they try to mess with us when we're trying to clear our minds to pray. But we can do it. We can do it. There is something out there that loves us,
Yeah.
Okay. Did I say I was, as I said, my outline didn't come up quite so well. Do you want me to tell you anything else?
No, gosh, I think, you hit all the points, and shielding, we're at the shielding point, unless you want to backtrack a little bit, talk about, you're big into vitamins and all the things that help you, and then, what you lean on, basically, not necessarily something external that you take, but, anything that you read or what helps you. I know you're an active member in AA. You do steps, just various methods that have kind of helped you stay afloat.
Well, I'll tell you, something that really kind of surprised me, because I have not been a Bible reader, but I was talking to Terry one night, and he said, I want my mom, because I told him there's some areas of my life that I'm still very ashamed of, and they keep raising their ugly little heads, and I hate feeling like that. I hate shame. Shame is just something we should never have to feel. And this is the most interesting thing. Terry got his mom on the phone, and we read a passage in the Bible together. And after the next morning, I woke up, and that shame was gone. And I was specifically, we did it to get rid of that shame for me, and I still can't find it. I think about the incident, and I just can't find any shame. I think there's something out there. I'm not going to say it's in the Bible, because I'm not a big Bible, although his mother sent me a Bible. God bless her. And so, and I'm reading that. That helps. But my go-to is kind of just between me and God, And, yes, AA, but not really up here. This is full of something that I talked with Kathy about, and we agreed that AA is full of perks, because it's such a good place to go find vulnerable people who they can manipulate. And I think the person that I connected with up here, well, I know she is. I know that a few incidents, she perped me, unfortunately, and that's okay. I don't have to get all involved. It's just, it happened. And now I'm away from in AA as much, but I'm more in the calls. These calls have saved my life, and can't stop my puppies from being hurt, but I'll figure that out. And I agree. We were on a call last night, and this lady that was on came up and said, these pamphlets are do nothing. It's going to do nothing for anybody. I don't know what she was more into the metaphysical, I think.
Right.
And rather than pamphlets. And the pamphlets are very powerful. I think what Terry's doing going forward is really very powerful, because the more people know, the more people are going to not like it, and the more they don't like it, the more we can tell our legislators and our representatives, do something about this, or we're not going to vote for you next time, and the more this spreads, the more powerful we become, and I think that's one of the great things that Terry's doing, I also think, this is for me, and I don't want anybody to get mad at me for saying this, but my concern is that if we get too going in different areas, I know that EMFs are not good for us, and I know we're swimming in them. However, what we're talking about is a concentrated form of EMFs, and that's causing injury and pain. And for me, I need to stay with this. I don't see myself being able to back down Verizon. I just don't. Yes, we should be upset about it. We should complain about it. But for me, focusing on what we're actually being injured by directly and painfully, that's what matters to me. And I feel we need to stay. We don't want to dilute it with a lot of other issues that we can't control.
Right.
And even if we seem like we can't control this, we're getting there. We're getting there.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. As long as we don't, spin out into too much other things to dilute it, I think we're going to be successful. We can win this, as Terry often tells us. We can win this, and we will. It's a matter of continuing to investigate, to find out what's going on, educate ourselves,